One of my favourite actors of all time, Richard Burton, tackles Verdane beautifully. Just for clarification, this is a filmed theatre production of the 1964 Broadway production of Hamlet, directed by John Gielgud. The direction of the film is credited to one Bill Colleran. Shakespeare's Hamlet doesn't need an introduction, and adaptations of the play have ranked amongst the most acclaimed films of all time, from Laurence Olivier, Tony Richardson, to Kurosawa, to Kosinstev, and even Disney. Though Disney, of course, also plagiarized Osamu Tezuka in that case. This adaptation, in turn, is phenomenally minimal, not just in its film production, but, as you see in these images, in its costuming. Gielgud deliberately went for a kind of rehearsal aesthetic. The cast brought in whatever clothes they felt comfortable in, and if Gielgud didn't like it, they would return the next rehearsal with something new, until he did. Part of this, allegedly, was due to Richard Burton's apparent dislike of wearing period costumes. This will be a discussion of the stage production as much as of the film, I suppose. It has been said that whilst filming 1964's Becket, Richard Burton and Peter O'Toole flipped a coin to decide who would take up which Hamlet lead in what city and with which director. O'Toole landed with Olivier's London production at the Royal National Theatre, and Burton, of course, with Gielgud on Broadway. The result is, I think, one of the purest, naked, and realised films of the great play. The script speaks for itself. Without true cinema direction, only the cast can conjure the most acclaimed play script, perhaps narrative in general, into something alive and breathing. Of course, they accomplish this with resounding success. They are wildly effective. Burton's Hamlet is an aggressive yet contemplative soul. He truly seems the maddened mind which lambasts Ophelia offstage, famously alluded to in Act 1, Scene 3. Well, I suppose everything in this play is famous, really. We don't want to empathise with him, as we did Olivier or with Nicole Williamson. We rather want to watch him burn everything to the ground. The fierce determinism gives a Hamlet which, for instance, demands the secrets of the ghost with no anxieties or terror, a truly mad prince. Whereas Polonius, at supper, begins one of the most enjoyable renditions of my favourite scene in the play. Not where he eats, but where he is eaten. A certain convocation of politic worms are eaten at him. Your worm is your only emperor for diet. We fat all creatures else to fat us, and we fat ourselves for maggots. Your fat king and your lean beggar is but variable service. 2 dishes, but to 1 table. That's the end. This is not delivered by a sorrowful, witty Hamlet, but a bitter, mocking Hamlet. I just love it. The other major standout from this cast, and he won a Tony for it, is Hume Cronyn's Polonius. This was the most truly 20th century Polonius to date, or at least a 20th century Polonius stuck in the late 19th century. This Polonius reminds me of a psychoanalyst. He seems to resemble the physical appearance of Sigmund Freud, at least to me. Certainly he discusses Hamlet's potential insanity not as a frightening woe of fate, but as a curious cold condition, a novelty of the human mind, which he, almost smugly, diagnoses with sick enjoyment. I enjoyed Alfred Drake as Claudius, but whereas Burton stands amongst his peers and Cronin high above them, Drake cannot possibly compete with the likes of Basil Sidney, Anthony Hopkins, Derek Jacobi, even Jeremy Irons' voice, honestly. It has been written that Gielgud desired to potentially replace Drake with Harry Andrews, which I think would have been utterly fantastic. I love Harry Andrews, and I would have loved to have seen his gorgeous scowl wielded at Burton's vicious, venomous Hamlet. Anyway, I find this to be a brilliant viewing experience. Hamlet is probably glued to many of our minds and holds little to no surprises as a plot synopsis, but anyone eager for a fabulous performance of its script will certainly enjoy this picture. I would happily include it in my list of great cinematic adaptations of the play, alongside Olivier's, Kurosawa's, Kosinstev's, Richardson, and Branagh's. Thank you and good night. The rest is, of course, quietness.